The basic concern, my friends, still is, are we continuing segregation in our state? When we looked at Chaz's report, we're not through with that report. I'm still of the opinion he traced that money gets to the cities, but a minority is getting any of that money. Are black contractors are they getting any of the major contracts? Are they getting any of the subcontracts? Are they getting any of the jobs? Is the money coming into our communities, and are we still perpetuating segregation by placing minorities, people who are immigrants into our cities, all in one section of town or another section of town, rather than having dispersed low and moderate income housing throughout the state, throughout all of our communities? All of those are questions that we have to continue to raise. Is Minerva still here? She left. A young lady I wanted you to meet who works for the FBI. When we think of the FBI, we normally don't think of people like Minerva, but she's doing some good work, and I hope you'll consider bringing her to your local communities to talk about career opportunities with the FBI. My job in trying to close this session, Marianne told me, was where do we go from here? So we close this session and with many highs and lows. We struggle, and the struggle continues on where we go from here. Even with reduced budgets, reduced staff, and ever-increasing needs from our citizenry, we have no choice but to go forward. I was saying to Terry Cunningham a little earlier, you know, we've lost over the last 10 years, now 11 staff people. We would like to see more people attending these conferences. We can't pay for their attendance. Terry reminded me that Jesus Christ only had 12 disciples. So take the 12 and go forward. Many people have cried, many have died, prayed, protested to move us to where we are today. And so I say to the staff at the commission often that those of us who are blessed to be paid maybe weekly, very weekly, but who are blessed to be paid have really been blessed to continue this work. And we have to do all that we can to move our state and nation forward. Today, we are still confronted in this state, and bear with me just for a second, because the question is, how do we end up this day's session? Where do we go from here? What issues are we confronted with in this state? We are still confronted with hate crimes and racial profiling, discrimination against persons regarding sexual orientation and gender identity, income inequality among women, lack of housing for persons with disabilities. You heard some of the discussions here today with issues of police brutality all across our state. The issues of voter suppression are here in Kentucky just like the rest of the nation. In Kentucky, where 1 out of every 4 African-American adults are not able to vote. The highest disenfranchisement rate in the nation is right here in Kentucky. We sometimes think of Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia, but we need to look here at our home state and what we are confronted with. If we look at the issues of sentencing disparities, where African Americans make up something like 7.5% of the state's population, but we are more like 31% of the state's prison population, where African Americans are incarcerated at a rate of something like, let me tell you, this started this way. White Kentuckians are concentrated at a rate of 561 for every 100,000 in the population, 561. But that's white Americans, did I say that? African Americans in this state are incarcerated at the rate of 2,795 per 100,000. You do the math. Let me just say to you, there's something wrong with that figure. I'm no great mathematician, but I got sense enough to know that those figures don't make sense. Redlining and housing discrimination in Kentucky, where 72% of white families in this state own homes. Not enough, but 72%, compared to only 38% of African Americans in this state own homes. When we look at poverty in Kentucky, 47.3% of African American children reside in poverty. That's almost half of the youth population in this state reside in poverty. There's enough discussion to talk about poverty for the next 2 hours, but let me just leave you with that thought. When we look at education achievement gaps in Kentucky, in our state where 62% of African American high school graduates are not college ready in one or more subjects. I'm not saying they aren't getting through high school, they're pushing them through high school, but they aren't ready to go to college. They need to take remedial courses. 62% of our children are not college ready. So in your local human rights commission's questions are, where do we go from here? These are the kind of issues, the discussions that we need to be having in our commissions about how these figures affect our individual communities. Let me just call to your attention almost 5%, 4.91% of African American students drop out of school every year in this state. 5%, the highest percentage, drop out of school. What future do they have if they don't finish high school? That ought to be a concern to Human Relations Commission. Let me tell you, in this state, where in the year of 53 and 54, a few years before I graduated from school, 59 years ago, 6.8% of our teachers in this state were African American. Today, that percentage has dropped below 3.7%. So the question is, are we going forward? Are we going backward? Are these challenges that you are raising in your communities, are you arguing with the school board, with the city council to address these issues in your community? These and a multitude of other social and human rights issues require our attention and our continuing vigilance. And so going forward, where do we go from here? We go forward to address these issues. We call upon you to continue the struggle, to conduct the research, to sound the alarm, to continue to ring freedom's bell, and to call our state to address the wrongs of the past and to move the Commonwealth forward so that all Kentuckians have full and equal opportunity. Today, this conference has sought to examine the progress and the status of fair housing in Kentucky. We have sought to highlight efforts made this year by the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights and its partners to lessen discrimination against people in areas of housing and other areas throughout the state. We appreciate and continuing support and assistance from our partners and our other civil rights advocates throughout Kentucky. With your continued help and with the help of people like you, we at the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights will continue to hold high the blood-stained banner for justice and equality as we continue to seek to be a protector of civil rights in this state, a voice for equality throughout the Commonwealth, and a catalyst for positive change in Kentucky. Thank you all so much for being here today. We don't know where we're going from here in future conferences, but Mary Ann's going to find some resources somewhere to bring us back together more than this, so we can further discuss in greater detail the issues that we've addressed here today. Thank you all so much for being here.